Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Creative Horizons, Policy Innovations, and Twinnings in the Mediterranean. It's a pleasure to have such a distinguished gathering of stakeholders, including policymakers, industry leaders, cluster managers, and experts, joining us to explore the opportunities and challenges in the creative industries across the Mediterranean. Today, our discussion will shed light on the immense potential of creative industries, a sector that drives social inclusion, economic growth, and cultural cohesion. By leveraging these sectors, we aim to strengthen the value chains connecting the North and South Mediterranean, creating a dynamic ecosystem for shared growth and innovation. Our webinar today is part of the EuroMed Cluster Innovative Webinar Series, and initiatives under the EuroMed Cluster Forward project. This series is dedicated to addressing both specific industry sectors and broader thematic trends impacting the region. We have designed these webinars as a platform to foster collaborative dialogue, share best practices, and identify actionable strategies to overcome barriers within these value chains. Our shared goal is to bolster the Mediterranean's role as a hub for creativity, sustainability, and economic resilience. The sector we are exploring today, creative industries, is essential across many southern Mediterranean countries. As we will hear from our panelists, these industries, from design and crafts to media and digital content, add economic value, foster cultural exchange, and drive innovation. They bring communities together, amplify unique local talents, and enhance the Mediterranean region to establish a more prominent place on the global creative map. On behalf of the Economic Research Forum and our partners, I extend my gratitude to our expert speakers and moderators for their contributions and insights. We look forward to a stimulating exchange of ideas and perspectives that will enrich our understanding and promote further collaborative efforts in this vital sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ibrahim. I believe Emmanuel has joined us. So, Emmanuel, the floor is yours for the opening remark.
Thank you very much, Yasmin, and thank you very much, Dr. Ibrahim, for this opening and for welcoming us in this meeting. So I'm Emmanuel Noutari, the General Delegate of the ANIMA Network, who is the coordinator of the EuroMed Cluster project initiatives that we lead in partnership with the Economic Research Forum. So I'm happy to welcome you as well for this very important webinar on cultural and creative industries. Well, I will not insist on the sector because you have a very qualified expert to speak about this this sector, but it's very interesting cultural and creative industry sector for two reasons. One, obviously, it's a sector of potential innovation, especially when we come to digital cultural creation. It creates jobs, obviously, but it's also a tool for soft power, for linkages from the North African country with their diaspora linkages to promote the countries outside in the rest of the world. So it's quite it's very interesting sector in this regard as well. Just two words on the EuroMed Clusters Forward. You are all participants that belong to business networks, clusters from Europe and the south of the Mediterranean. Our project, EuroMed Clusters Forward, is now halfway. It's a project to support the development and the connection of clusters among the Euro-Mediterranean region. And it's quite an extensive project that we lead with different partners, Veritech, Leaders International Economic Research Forum, to work on different aspects. One is the policy side. So we have in each country, each of the 7 countries in the south of the Mediterranean, we are conducting a public-private dialogue and to have an impact on new strategy, new law, new bills to support the development of industrial clusters, to support their support at national level, especially financial support, and it's doing a good result at the moment. The second pillar is of this project, it's capacity building and reinforcement of the clusters through training, through site visit, through peer-to-peer trainings, technical assistance as well. And today we are part of this knowledge sharing activities and know-how sharing activities. And we also have a third pillar in this project, which is about connecting businesses, connecting clusters to develop value chains, Euro-Mediterranean value chains. You know, it's very important in this context of where everyone is looking to gain in sovereignty. I mean, in the Euromed countries, everyone is looking also to have a less impact on as regard to climate change. Shorter value chains, Euromed value chains is a momentum today, and that we want to develop with this Euromed Clusters Forward project. And clusters are definitely a place where these value chains could develop, because they are the place precisely where technology takes place, where they are the place where collaboration takes place. And in this regard, there are very interesting networks and institutions to rely on. Well, thank you for the opening. Thank you, Yasmin, for the organization of the meeting, and thank you to all the speakers to be there with us. I'm looking forward to hear what you have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. Coming after you and Dr. Ibrahim has made me a great deal, because my presentation was actually supposed to give you an insight about the webinar series we're actually organizing, the Euromed Innovate webinar series. And also I want to help in setting the scene about why we chose creative industries. And thanks to Emmanuel and Dr. Ibrahim, they have already paved the way. So I won't take a lot of your time. To get started, I'm Yasmin Arabi. I'm ERF Senior Programs Officer, and I've been working on ECF project since its kickoff. I've been very lucky to join and see how the project has been unfolding so far. To give you a quick start, as Doc mentioned earlier, today's webinar is part of a series we're actually putting together called Euromed Cluster Innovate Webinar, which is a platform we are putting together to address evolving needs and challenges of various economic sectors in the Mediterranean region. The way we have built this actually series is divided into 2 subcategories. The first one is what we call sectoral webinars, like the one we're having today. It focuses on specific individual sectors like creative industries, agri-food, ICT, services, automotive, energy, green tech, and water, for instance. And there's another one called thematic, or we've designed as thematic webinars, which will be webinars that address broader themes and issues that can impact multiple sectors. For instance, we're talking about value chain enhancement. We plan to have something related to innovation and sustainable development, export strategies, and of course, regulatory frameworks. Where did this idea came from? It's basically building upon an exercise we did at the beginning of the project. ERF and FIMIS was leading this, where we did an exercise called mapping of the South Med clusters. And also we did a survey across the mapped South Med clusters. These themes were one of the most highlighted themes that they need maybe further development or further discussion as enablers to enhance the cluster's ecosystems. And these sectors, as you're going to see right now, that we've chosen are the sectors that actually include most of the clusters. This activity or this cluster mapping, as I mentioned, was an exercise started by ARF and FEMIS, but then ANIMA have worked further on it. And as you can see, we have helped us into developing what we called Mapster. It's a map that includes South Med clusters and EU clusters. Since we are focusing today a little bit on the South Med region, so the map, as you can see, have highlighted or included 82 clusters. And this on the left, you can see the distribution by country, and on the right, according to the sector, the main activity of each cluster sector. So you can see ICT, agri-food, energy, textile, creative industries are among the high sectors that include, or the sectors that include most of the mapped clusters in the South Med region. This is one of the main reasons why we selected these sectors for our sectoral webinars or series in the future. As mentioned by Dr. Ibrahim and Emmanuel, thankfully, that creative and culture and creative industries encompass traditional arts, crafts, publishing, music, film, television, digital media, design, fashion, and architect. And according to United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, creative goods and services represent 3% of the global merchandise and 21% of service export. These figures came from 2020. And they are also responsible for approximately 6.2 of the global employment, which is give and take 50 million jobs. And when you look deeper into that, you can see that this sector actually employ more young people than other economic sectors. And additionally, this is a very important sector, as mentioned by Manuel, because it promotes social inclusion, human development, cultural diversity, and all of this are key components of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goal. Further, you can see that the culture and creative industries actually have programs have a great potential to improve various policy objectives when we talk about economic growth, unemployment, sustainable development, and the cross-cut different priorities in the economy, generally speaking, and in each country. When we talk about gender equality, youth and women empowerment, creative and cultural industries come first to mind. Not to mention that they also enhance the cultural exchange and promote heritage. And you can see this really shared heritage really in the Mediterranean region. If we go swiftly by numbers beyond the employment, for instance, or when look into employment, you can see that in Morocco, for instance, we're talking about this sector employs a substantial number of youth and reduced unemployment rates. We're talking about 1.1 million people employed in handicraft-related sectors. These figures were 2019. And also, we can see that according to the same study by United Nations Conference for Trade and Development, estimates that approximately 2.2 of Lebanon GDP comes from, or significant revenue comes from, the creative and cultural goods. And it also highlights that this is it goes through, or very important to the economy because of the domestic consumption in addition to the exports, of course. And Emmanuel have already mentioned that this is very important because digital transformation plays a very important in this sector, is very important, and is a leading actually sector because it helps more in adoption of new technologies. So we're talking about over here, you can see the importance of innovation arises as well. Very quickly, given this importance, you can see that there has been many collaboration initiatives taking place between the Southern and Northern European countries, and there has been many funded initiatives, regional and bilateral. These are some of the examples, and we have very distinguished speakers from a number of these initiatives today. Thanks for joining us. And you can see also that in 2018, the new European Agenda for Culture highlighted culture and diversity as very important drivers for innovation, growth, job creation, and acknowledges the essential role of them in driving social and economic development. And also you can see creative and culture and creative industries again being highlighted, and we can see this in the European Commission by launching the European Commission launching the new EU industrial strategy, where they highlight and outline 30 clusters for implementing strategic initiative across the Mediterranean, and creative and cultural industries were identified as one of the key 14 industrial ecosystem. And my final presentation, I would like to highlight the importance of clusters as we can see, as we can call it, the change agent, maybe, because we can see this implemented like previously. The EC launched several European cluster partnership. One of them was the Next Society, and the Next Society served actually as a hub cluster community. It brought together 300 plus business organization, more than 2,500 international SMEs entrepreneurs. And this is where I leave you by reassuring the importance of culture and creative industries and how they have a potential to play a key role in innovative ecosystem, whether we're talking about policy frameworks, fostering startups, promoting promoting and globalizing clusters, and accelerating, of course, technology transfer. This is where I leave you, and I hand the floor to Maryse to actually dive deeper into creative industries sector, and through the speakers and her moderation, we'll be hearing more about like enablers and that face the sector in the South Med countries. So thank you for your attention, and Maryse, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Yasmin, so much for this very informative introduction, and this actually paves the way beautifully to what is coming up. I'm very excited to be moderating this session. So my name is Maryse Louis. I'm the General Manager of FEMIS Network, which is a network of 100 institutes from the north and south of the Mediterranean, aiming to provide research and connecting the north and south of the Mediterranean through our quality research, our events, and our policy dialogue. So I will not take more time. I will very quickly introduce our speakers. So we have today, we have Jad Zarib, who is the National Program Manager of the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, EBRD. He's the managing of EBRD's Advice for Small Business program in Lebanon. He joined EBRD in 2021 to launch the Star Venture program that supports Lebanese startups. Hello, Jad.
Thank you for having me.
So I will just introduce all the panelists so that we can have, after that, some discussion, and I will ask them some questions, which they will be hopefully willing to respond to in short, because we only have like very few minutes to answer these questions. My second panelist is Joelle Yazbek. She is the regional coordinator of the ICC ESQA Center for Entrepreneurship, which is an initiative of the EU and ESQA with the International Chamber of Commerce. Joelle has managed key initiatives such as the e-commerce acceleration, and she also coordinates the capacity building work stream at the annual Arab SME Summit. Hello, Joelle.
Hi, Maryse. Thanks for having me.
We have our third panelist is Nader Steta, who's from the Business Development Center. He's a seasoned professional with expertise in creative industries development, gender equality, and the green economy. He currently contributes to the EU-funded Green Links project at the BDC, equipping youth and essential green skills to foster sustainable entrepreneurship. He's also focusing on private sector engagement and gender-sensitive policies in the media. Hello, Nader.
Hello, thank you for having me, Maryse.
And we have Miriam Rashdi, who is an industrial process engineer. She's the general director of the Moroccan Fashion Cluster since 2015, a cluster bringing together 90 industrial companies. From 2021, she manages the first incubation acceleration program for emerging Moroccan fashion brands, and she is the first in the MENA region to collaborate with local media as a fashion analyst and trends columnist. Hello, Miriam. So great to see you all. I will start by asking Jad a question. So Jad, when we talk about creative industries, often comes to mind that it's a very traditional, it just have some very historical kind of nature, and people often not think about innovation or digital transformation when it comes to creative industry. From your point of view, how do you see the impact of digital transformation and innovation on this very interesting sector? Jad.
Thank you very much, Maryse, and thanks again for having me. If I can just start by a very quick introduction of what we do at the EBRD, very briefly. So since the early 90s, we're a private sector development bank. We're present in more than 35 countries, and we do three main things. One is financing, two is policy dialogue. So we try to improve the policy environment in the countries where we operate. And the third part, which is of interest today, is our work specifically with SMEs. We work with SMEs under our flagship Advice for Small Businesses program, basically to do capacity building, ecosystem support, but also to do bespoke work with SMEs. We help SMEs directly on topics like HR, operations, marketing, etc. In the region, we've done more than 4,500 projects with roughly 3,000 SMEs. All of that to say that we work across all sectors and we have a first-hand experience of SMEs. Now, to answer your question, definitely the initial thought would be that creative sectors might be a bit traditional, but as a matter of fact, and I'll speak more on Lebanon, this is quite the opposite that we're seeing. Creative sectors, and as you know, Lebanon has witnessed a number of crises, have become a lot more resilient. They have been more capable of weathering the storms in Lebanon than the traditional sectors. They are actually excellent service providers to other sectors, and they have been catalysts for other sectors locally and internationally. I believe that the creative sectors have used the digital transformation, probably accelerated by COVID, better than anybody else. Today, in the context of Lebanon, for example, the creative sectors offer remote work opportunities for Lebanese talent, for instance, where we're known, fortunately or unfortunately, as exporters of talent. And today, with the creative sectors and how they embrace the digital transformation, it has become possible for business models to export talents, but while creating jobs within Lebanon. So this has become a very important part of how these SMEs and businesses help the economy and basically embrace the digital transformation. I don't want to take a lot of time, but we'll probably step in with a couple of more examples throughout the conversation.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jad, for this very interesting input, and particularly from the case of Lebanon. Of course, we know in Lebanon has many talents, and the creative industry represent an important part of the sector. So, from your experience and within your role at the EBRD, what do you consider to be key challenges faced by the creative industries in the South Mediterranean countries, and of course in Lebanon in particular? And what are your strategies from your experience that we can use to overcome these challenges?
Thank you, Maryse. Definitely, of course, I speak more on Lebanon, but just also to be comprehensive, the EBRD is present in the region and what we call Southern and Eastern Mediterranean. We're present in North Africa and Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia, and in the Eastern Med, in Lebanon, Palestine, and Jordan. But I'll speak more on Lebanon because this is my first-hand experience. In terms of challenges, of course, it's very hard to speak about Lebanon and the region without speaking of political instability, lack of resources, and constant uncertainty and volatility. That's definitely one challenge. There's also the challenge of the brain drain. As we were saying, the export of talent leaves consequences in the local economies. And there's also access to finance, which is one of the main challenges that businesses face, in particular for the creative industries, because of our traditional way of looking at lending. So we look at collateral, we look at business traction, etc. And sometimes for creative industries, this can be a bit more challenging. And there's also the size, I think, of the markets we operate in. They are small and tend to be fragmented, with sometimes a limited culture for collaboration and innovation. in terms of how to overcome this, I think innovation and collaboration are the key words, and I think it's very timely that we speak of this, and specifically under the program that you're running and that this is organized under. I just want to also take a second to speak about one of the programs, very innovative programs that we're running currently. It's funded by the EU. We started it last year in 2023. And the idea is not only to provide advisory to small businesses, but really to stimulate the linkage between small businesses and between academia and R&D providers. The idea is that innovation can be stimulated. And what we do is basically walk with the SMEs on the innovation journey. The creative sectors are one of the priority sectors of this program. And the modus operandi here is initially companies come to us jointly with researchers with an idea for initial R&D. We de-risk this. So we provide donor funding thanks to the EU for the initial R&D up to 5,000 euros. And then companies can conduct this R&D. And if they see economical value in it, they can continue on the next steps of the program to basically commercialize and go to market.
Thank
Please
you,
go
Jad.
ahead.
I know I'm just about to tell you to slow down a little bit because the interpretation was
sorry.
funding. I know you're just rushed to say all these very interesting things in such a short time. Yeah, thank you so much, Jad, for this very useful insights. Of course, Lebanon has its own specific challenges, but to be honest, it's across the whole region. When you talk about the brain drain, political instabilities, other financial issues, and how the culture embraces innovation, we do have some common challenges within the network. And of course, as you mentioned, collaboration and linkages between the academia, the research, and the government and the policies. I think this could be an important way to overcome these challenges. Thank you very much, Jad.
Sorry, Mary, if I can just add one example. I know we're talking about clusters in the creative industries, but there are very successful case studies. I think you will have my colleague Jessica from Veritech speak later on in the agenda. But we have, for instance, one example in the agri-food sector where we have Koot, which is a cluster of agri-food innovators that came together, initiated by Veritech and supported by donor funding, but then with the right support and with the right mindset, sharing of resources, collaboration, etc. This has become today kind of a flagship collaboration within the ecosystem. So really, I think our message here as the EBRD is that we are enablers for the private sector, ecosystem. And we really encourage clustering and collaboration so that it provides a fertile ground for us to mobilize our support and to basically increase our impact.
Very interesting initiative, and we'll make sure to include it in our agri-food webinar, which also will be organized by ERF very soon. Yasmin, of course, will give insight about that and information about that. Thank you so much, Jad. And of course, we will be coming back to you with the questions from the participants and so on. But now I would like to move to our second panelist, Joël Yasbak, who is the regional coordinator of ICC ESQA. And Joël, given your experience in supporting small businesses, owners, and digital transformation capacity building, what trends and opportunities and challenges do you see emerging for small businesses in the creative industries? What are the areas that you think should be prioritized? So a little bit similar to what I asked Jad, but having you from a different perspective, maybe you could give us some more insights on opportunities and challenges for the creative industries from your perspective.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Maurice, for the question. And I do really think that fellow speakers, they have beautifully paved the way around digital transformation. So when we look at trends and opportunities for SMEs in the creative economy, actually a few things really stand out. And I'm going to try to give some examples to, better materialize this for our audiences. So first, this is something that has been tackled also previously. We're seeing a major shift toward digital platforms and e-commerce. more and more creative SMEs are turning into online marketplaces, into social media and digital marketing in order to reach bigger audiences and to run their businesses more efficiently. And the digital tools here and the digital transformation is helping them connect with customers well beyond their local markets and even to compete on a global scale. Alongside this shift, new technologies like virtual reality and artificial intelligence are making a real impact in the creative industries, especially when it comes to enhancing customer experiences and supporting underserved communities in ways that weren't possible before. And I want to give here two examples. The first one around virtual reality. This technology is transforming online shopping by allowing customers to experience products in a more immersive way. So today, instead of just looking at images, people can try on clothing, see how furniture fits in their homes, or even explore an art gallery all virtually. This interactive experience not only makes online shopping more engaging, but it also helps customers make more informed decisions, which can lead to greater satisfaction on the customer side and also fewer returns and operations on the business or the SME side. So for creative businesses, this level of sensory engagement is incredibly valuable. AI is another, or artificial intelligence is another game changer. And I would like to give another example. So I'd like to take the example of MyTindi, which is an online marketplace supporting Moroccan artisans. This startup has developed a unique AI-powered chat feature. And this tool, which works like WhatsApp, allows artisans to upload product photos and add description using either voice or text. What's so special here is that it recognizes the local Moroccan dialect, making it accessible to artisans who might not be comfortable with written language. Artisans can simply describe their products in their own words, and the AI processes this information, creating a digital product catalog automatically. And this helps artisans, specifically in remote areas, to connect with online markets without needing advanced digital skills. Of course, with these opportunities come the challenges, okay? Especially when we're tackling sustainability. Some creative industries like fashion, they have a large environmental footprint. Even digital tools have their own costs, such as energy use and e-waste. But when we look at the creative sector, we see that it is in a unique position to lead on sustainability. For example, green building design is becoming popular in architecture, and the fashion industry is starting to adopt circular economy models. Creative industries have a real ability to inspire change, and they can play a big role in raising awareness on climate issues. Inclusivity is also a major focus. It was tackled in the opening speech and in Yasmin's presentation. We know that creative industries, they provide a lot of job opportunities, especially for women and youth. However, with the fast pace of technological change that has been highlighted as well, the digital divide still exists. And addressing this gap is critical so that emerging opportunities do not leave anyone behind. And also, as artificial intelligence becomes more integrated into the creative work, we also need to manage challenges around diversity, bias, and data privacy to ensure these technologies are being used responsibly. I'll leave it here for now, Maryse.
Thank you, Joelle, for these very interesting, and I find it really interesting, the AI and all the things you talked about, which, well, I mean, we are going into this direction, and if we don't catch up, we will be left behind. And I'm a little bit worried about the digital divide, which is something we all worry about at the South Mediterranean countries. How can they keep up with the progress in the digital transformation and all the use? And I'm sure there will be lots of projects and programs that will help all the SMEs to have the right information and the right skills and training to be up to date with all these very interesting development in the digital sector, especially within our sector we talk about today. So given this, and given what also Jad said earlier about the need to have collaboration between, the different stakeholders from the government, the academia, the private sector, NGOs. So from your perspective, how can this contribute, or how can we develop this type of collaboration that could contribute to building a more supportive environment for the creative SMEs in the Mediterranean region? What kind of support that can be impactful within this type of collaboration between the different stakeholders?
Yes. So again, building on what was discussed previously. So if I take digital transformation, I think governments and NGOs, they can make it easier for SMEs in the creative sector, to get online and to grow their reach. And also we need reliable internet access and digital skills training. And this combination can really go a long way in helping small businesses to sell to customers beyond their local markets. Another area of focus would be intellectual property rights. Creative SMEs, they rely a lot on their designs and on their brands, but navigating the IP protection can be tough, especially for smaller businesses. So governments can make this process simpler and cheaper so SMEs can protect their ideas without a ton of legal hassle. And also NGOs could pitch in by offering workshops to support SMEs to help them understand their rights. And also the private sector can also pitch in here, especially in the legal fields, so in a way that they can offer more affordable or even free IP services for these small businesses. Talking about sustainability, governments can support by giving incentives to SMEs that can make eco-friendly choices. NGOs can also play a role here by educating businesses more about the green practices, while private sector can serve as role models showing how to adopt these sustainable methods and inspire the smaller ones to follow suit. And lastly, the point that we talked about when it comes to the digital divide and the inclusivity. And we heard that the creative industry is a huge source of jobs, especially for women and young people. So making sure that everyone has access to these opportunities is essential. And I'd like to give one example as part of our work that we've been doing with the Arab Gulf Program for Development, which is the AG Fund. And they have a network of microfinance banks across the region. And what we do is that we work with their clients to upskill them when it comes to digital skills, and we guide them through their transition into online selling. And we make sure throughout the process, we include training programs that are really inclusive, targeting those who might otherwise be left out. So the combination and the collaboration, again, that we talked about between the governments, the NGOs, and the private sector, they all have a part to play into building an environment that really supports the SMEs and the creative economy.
Thank you so much, Joelle, for these interesting insights, and to know that there are actual programs that are targeting youth and women to enable them to access the digital transformation and how to promote their products. I think that would be, and I'm sure within the ESCWA, there is a lot of programs that you can promote across the whole region. So very, very reassuring, just to put it this way. Thank you so much for your input, Joelle. I'm sure we'll come back to you with other questions from the floor. I now move to our third panelist, Nader Steta. Hello, Nader. So, Nader, you are a seasoned professional. I wonder what that means. So you will tell us. And you are an expert in creative industries, gender equality, and you work in the very interesting program called Green Links with the Business Development Center. So, Nader, with your experience, what would be a good strategy to find most effective for encouraging SMEs in Jordan to be actively participating in creative industry? In other words, how do you encourage SMEs to be part of the creative industries, and how clusters within these industries are supporting the sustainable growth in SMEs in general?
Of course. First of all, let me talk about, I can explain what BDC and my seasoned professional means. So what I do is basically I work in different projects, so I like to adapt. So I'm not a specific expert on a specific type of, let's say, like a project. That's why I always try to have my knowledge as wide as possible in everything. So right now, BDC, just a quick brief, I'm not going to take much of your time, is a nonprofit organization and we've been established since 2004. We promote economic development, sustainable development, capacity building, gender equality, social inclusion in Jordan by offering internationally certified soft and entrepreneurship skills. And it's all tailored for the youth and women to help them positively make an impact in the society, basically. Speaking more about the subject, so we focus mainly at BDC in 4 economies. Those 4 economies become green, blue, and orange and yellow. I don't know if you're familiar with the orange and yellow economy. So the orange economy is basically the creative economy. It's related to the creative economy as we're speaking of right now. And you have the yellow economy, which is basically focusing more on the economic implications of innovation, technologies in areas like digital media and telecommunications in the economic activities. Why am I telling you about these economies? Because it's important for us as a company to understand and navigate the complexities of the modern economic development and prioritize sustainable practices towards them. Back to your question, right now as BDC, we're providing tailored business support services to support creative entrepreneurs. We offer tailored advisory services, including business planning, financial management, and marketing support. By adapting these services to the unique needs of the creatives, we enable them to build business models and position themselves competitively in the market. This guidance can help ensure that they thrive in the competitive environments that we have. Speaking of guidance, of course, this goes under the career management umbrella, which is under, of course, other program that we work with, which is called ISA, which is Strive in English. It trains graduates specifically on identifying the career paths when it comes to creative industries. Some people graduate not knowing the career path. You have them find the career path before them entering the market as well. Another thing is developing, as they said, of course, previously, is the capacity building programs and developing skills. Recognizing the skill gap in the creative industries, we collaborated with educational institutions. We collaborated with the ministries as well, and training providers to deliver programs that focus on critical skills from content creation and others by emphasizing real-world industry-specific skills. So what I mean by that, in BDC, we don't look at the problem as a whole. We dive into the problem itself. So we came up even with another program that focuses on basically on-the-job training, giving the participants an hands-on experience, learning experience, training them on the job as an intern, getting paid so that they can gain experience in the field themselves. Like as a creative industry user, I can work as an intern in a company, and I will gain the experience myself, helping me enter the labor market. This way, more people will be people who are not access to such, let's say, don't have access to enter these markets could have an access after getting this training. And also, we encourage digital transformation and design, as we saw this as a very big problem happening at the moment. We believe it's an investment opportunity, as it is in the education institutions and training programs focused on creative disciplines. We currently support digital transformations by offering training in digital media and other digital tools that are inaccessible or that participants can't afford. And we position creative businesses to expand their digital presence and reach international markets as they lack the skill to do so, of course. So this falls under our main goal, which is increasing the competitiveness between the SMEs to foster the growth in the orange economy. So this way, as I said, it will, hopefully I answered your question. I don't want to go dive deep into much into it.
No, you answered the question perfectly. And of course, all the initiatives and programs implemented by the BDC are very impactful. We do know about quite a lot of initiatives across our work with them. So, of course, thank you so much for giving us this very interesting ground of what you do. And I will just pick up on something you said from your previous response about investment opportunities. So you did mention that digital transformation and provides an investment opportunity. And I just want to know from you, how does this relate to the creative industry? So how can the creative industry be attractive for investors to invest in that specific sector. And I would like to bring in as well, if you can, the gender perspective, because I see you worked a lot on gender issues and inclusivity. So how does these business opportunities can bring in or can motivate the gender perspective within?
Of course, of course. So the digital transformation that's happening is causing a very big problem that I want to even speak about. It's called upskilling and reskilling, which is something that we're currently working on, and it's a very big problem that is happening. So this is something we should focus on, as there's an increasing skill mismatch that highlights the gap between the education and the labor market, driven by the technological change that is happening and the evolving job requirements. So what is reskilling? I can explain. It basically involves teaching a worker new skills to help them transition into different roles or industries that are often necessary to the job roles that are becoming obsolete or becoming basically lost due to the technological advancement. Same goes for the upskilling. Upskilling focuses on enhancing the skills of the workers with their current roles, often through advanced training or education to help them stay competitive and adapt to the new technologies that are constantly evolving. The education institutions may struggle to keep up with the changes, of course, of what's happening, resulting in graduates or people in the creative industries with irrelevant skills. This is why some people, you can find someone working in the creative industries in a specific company or in a specific field, finding himself out of the field or getting run out of becoming obsolete because he's not relevant to what's happening right now with the technological advancements. He's not being able to pick up with what the industry's needs at the moment are. And of course, there are industry-specific needs, which differentiates the industries have requirements that may not be addressed by the general education program, for example, AI, art, or VR, or blockchain, that are not introduced in a traditional curriculum as well. What was your second question, just so I can make sure I answered it correctly?
So my second question relates to the gender inclusive. How do you make these investment opportunities attractive to make the women participate more, to have this gender equality balance within the sector? Because I see you did work on initiatives related to gender equality.
Yes, so we always ensure equal access to all the opportunities as well. We implement fair policies. We foster gender inclusive culture in BDC. We provide unconscious bias and gender sensitivity training to all employees, for example. We support women entrepreneurs and leaders, promote gender representation, decision making. What else? Provide work-life balance and family support. All those basically work under the umbrella of providing gender equality in our programs. We make sure everything is well balanced and so that people in the industry can work well together, basically.
Thank you so much, Nader, for this very interesting insight and for what you have just described about all the projects and the initiatives that you undertake and the BDC is undertaking under this very interesting and challenging sector. Thank you so much for bringing all this perspective. We'll come back to you, but now I will move to our fourth panelist, Mariam Rajdi. Mariam, you are the General Director of the Moroccan Fashion Cluster since 2015, and the cluster brings together 90 cluster companies within. So you have very interesting experience with cluster, and we would like you to share with us this experience. So what do you consider is the key success factors within the creative industries clusters? Why are clusters successful when it comes to all the firms getting together to form a cluster? Why do you think this is successful, and how can we make this leverage this for competitiveness? Maria.
Can you just repeat, because I didn't hear the last part of your question?
So my question is two components, let's put it this way. So why creative industries clusters in the Mediterranean is successful, or especially in your sector, in the fashion sector? What are the key ingredients that makes it successful? And the second part of my question is, how does this leverage the sustainability and competitiveness within the sector, being in a cluster?
D'accord, merci beaucoup pour l'invitation. Donc déjà, je ne peux pas affirmer que que ce sont des clusters qui ont réussi sur tous leurs objectifs parce que nous avons aussi beaucoup de challenges sur lesquels nous travaillons chaque jour, notamment l'intégration des nouveaux business models de marques émergentes dans l'écosystème industriel, qui est une thématique particulièrement prenante en termes de financement, en termes d'évangélisation par rapport au pouvoir public, mais en tout cas par rapport au travail qu'on a entrepris avec le public industriel, les facteurs de succès de l'approche clustering, c'est surtout cette proximité géographique qui regroupe les entreprises entre elles et la possibilité d'avoir un acteur, une équipe sur place qui se charge de créer cette harmonie et de mettre en place des outils d'ideation collective et de déploiement de projets collectifs entre les membres. Donc le clustering a comme approche et retrouve ses clés de succès dans cette façon de mettre un ensemble de compagnies, d'entreprises qui sont parfois concurrentes, qui sont parfois liées par des relations clients-fournisseurs sur la même chaîne de valeur, à devenir des partenaires sur des projets innovants, sur des projets qui ne rentrent pas forcément dans ce qui constitue leur chiffre d'affaires, mais sur d'autres options de développement qui n'étaient pas jusque-là visibles par ces entreprises ou perceptibles par ces entreprises. La deuxième question, elle concerne, je pense, l'impact du clustering sur l'approche de la durabilité chez ces entreprises-là. Donc, c'est tout à fait une continuité de ce que j'ai de ma première réponse. Donc, nous sommes une structure, avoir un cluster, c'est surtout avoir une structure de partage de connaissances et d'échange de connaissances et de bonnes pratiques. Donc, ce que nous faisons, c'est surtout quand on fait un travail de transfert de connaissances entre les membres, transfert de bonnes pratiques entre les membres. Nous faisons aussi un travail de capacity building auprès de ces entreprises en apportant les expertises nécessaires, en faisant aussi advocacy auprès des pouvoirs publics, auprès d'intervenants aussi internationaux qui peuvent avoir un impact sur telle ou telle législation, telle régulation qui impacterait notre secteur.
Très bien, Myriam. Merci beaucoup pour ce que vous venez de nous dire. Et je passe à l'anglais. Do you have examples of successful collaboration within your clusters? So, il y a des exemples que vous pouvez nous partager avec nous. Et what initiatives fosters innovation and support emerging from the fashion brands in Morocco? So being you are the manager of the cluster, of the fashion cluster, so what are the innovation and support that are within the cluster that you can share with us? So examples and the innovation issues.
Pour nos expériences réussies, je pense que l'une des plus grandes réussite du cluster, c'est d'avoir pu mettre à niveau un nombre d'entreprises sur tout ce qui est objectif de développement durable, un projet que nous avons commencé très tôt en 2015. Donc, nous disposons à l'époque de très peu de financement sur ces questions et c'est à travers vraiment c'est très peu de financements locaux qu'on a pu travailler avec une quarantaine d'entreprises sur les objectifs de développement durable, qu'on a intégré de façon graduelle dans leur process de fabrication, dans leur process de recrutement et de reconversion de certains emplois dans ces entreprises qui n'étaient pas très sustainable, très durable. Donc, on a entrepris ce plan de transformation entre 2015 et 2020. Et aujourd'hui, il y a vraiment un héritage qui est bien installé dans les zones industrielles que nous avons gérées. Et ça continue à fonctionner à travers d'autres entreprises qui viennent visiter les entreprises pilotes et essayer de reprendre les mêmes modèles dans leur process, dans leur façon de faire. À côté de cela, nous étions aussi pionniers dans l'intégration d'outils digitaux dans les process de fabrication. Je ne sais pas, est-ce que vous êtes familier avec l'industrie textile ou l'industrie de l'habillement en particulier, mais c'est une industrie qui est particulièrement chronophage. Elle demande beaucoup de présence humaine dans les usines, beaucoup de changements sur les commandes, beaucoup de paramètres à gérer au quotidien. Et cela faisait que nos entreprises avaient toutes des reportings concernant leur performance qui n'étaient pas très justes, qui ne reflétaient pas le savoir-faire exact de ces entreprises. Donc, nous avons travaillé à travers des études de l'état d'art, à travers des partenariats avec des clusters européens, mais aussi beaucoup de visites en Chine, en Inde, pour pouvoir un peu ratisser toutes les solutions digitales qui peuvent être implémentées dans ces usines-là et qui peuvent résoudre des problèmes d'excellence opérationnelle dont elles souffrent. Et aujourd'hui, nous avons 2 usines pilotes également qui sont équipées de plusieurs technologies digitales spécifiques à la production et qui peuvent prétendre être des usines de confection, productrices d'habillement 100% digitalisées. Donc, grâce justement à ce travail de cluster. Nous avons aussi participé à l'émergence de startups digitales locales qui fournissent des solutions digitales à ces entreprises. Aujourd'hui, nous avons deux startups particulièrement actives dans notre secteur et qui sont 100% marocaines. L'une d'entre elles est spécialisée dans la digitalisation du contrôle du port des EPI, des vêtements de protection, des équipements de protection, et une autre start-up qui travaille sur la reconnaissance faciale sur la distribution, sur la reconnaissance faciale qui peut aider les responsables de production à mieux distribuer leurs ressources humaines sur le site de production. Donc, nous sommes aussi très fiers d'avoir été à l'initiative de ces 2 projets qui se sont aujourd'hui constitués en start-up. Par rapport à la partie aussi qui concerne les jeunes marques et qui sont plus dans le sujet d'aujourd'hui, nous avons créé en 2019 le premier programme d'incubation de marques locales. Donc, c'est un programme qui se déroule sur une année. Il est composé de formations principalement, mais d'accompagnement personnalisé. Et dans sa première année, on a pu accompagner une vingtaine de marques. En 2021, nous avons décidé de le transformer en un programme d'accélération plutôt que d'incubation. Donc aujourd'hui, on s'occupe plutôt de marques qui ont plus de 5 ans d'existence, plus de 3 ans de preuve de vente. Et on fait une sélection de ces entreprises-là. On les aide à avoir un accès à des expertises spécifiques, des expertises pointues, mais aussi à des expertises en levée de fonds, parce que ce sont des industries qui nécessitent un travail de levée de fonds qui est complètement différent des startups digitales ou des startups technologiques. Donc, et c'est toute la difficulté d'avoir la bonne expertise qui peut accompagner ces entrepreneurs dans leur processus de levée de fonds.
Merci beaucoup, Mariam, pour donner ces exemples et pour ces initiatives. We do understand why creative industry do like to be in a cluster. There are lots of benefits that you mentioned, including the possibility to have all of them put in the same place, the value chain, and so on. So I think this is something that can promote the clusters and being in a cluster for other firms. So thank you very much. And So for all the panelists, we have some Q&As from the floor. So I will just mention two questions that, Jad, you have a question. So you did mention some political instability in Lebanon. So, and what the question is, what kind of support does your institution provide to affected creative industries that are already in your programs? Jad.
Yes, thank you. So we've adapted some of our programming to the ongoing crises. As I mentioned earlier, we provide capacity building activities and we provide bespoke advisory services to SMEs. On the capacity building, we're delivering crisis-related capacity building, be it on contingency planning, on crisis management, on digitalization for businesses to be able to continue working in these very difficult times, including whenever they need to relocate or whenever they need to have a decentralized workforce. That's on the capacity building front. On the advisory side, when we operate as we are a private sector development bank, we always have what we call skin in the game from the businesses. So we do cover with donor funding a big chunk of the costs of advisory, but we expect businesses to also cover a chunk. In the current context, we are helping our clients and partners by waiving this cost share requirement. So we are able to provide advisory services without adding any constraint to the already scarce cash flow of the businesses we're supporting. And we're looking also in terms of forward-looking measures, we're looking at hopefully soon whatever post-conflict assistance we'll be able to offer. And this could take the form of reconstruction support for businesses that were affected so that they can reconstitute their economic assets and resume and scale up operations again.
Thank you, Jad, for your answer. So I have another question for Joelle. As ESQA, could you share with us some successful initiatives to enhance country-to-country collaboration and/or coordination between similar clusters in the MENA region as means to address the challenge of small market size within a country?
Thank you, Maurice, for the question. So as I mentioned in my first engagement, we have the e-commerce acceleration program, or the ECAP program, where we provide training and resources to help SMEs develop essential digital and business skills to make a successful transition into e-commerce. And that includes the website creation, improving online presence, and also understanding the tools necessary for scaling in a digital-first economy. As part of the post-acceleration phase, we've actually launched a new platform called the Arab Creative Market. And this platform, it's a culmination of creative businesses across the region where they can showcase their products, they can collaborate with similar businesses, and they expand their reach beyond the local borders. And this network encourages clusters in different countries. We have more than 15 countries on that platform to share resources, expertise, and even customer bases, helping those SMEs grow by tapping into regional markets collectively.
Thank you, Joelle, for your reply. So I think if there is no more questions from the floor, I will close this session. I would like to thank my four panelists, Jad, Joelle, Nader, and Miriam. Thank you very much for your very, very interesting input.
Thank you.
And we will be expecting you to stay with us for the rest of the webinar. I'm sure there will be other questions and things that you might be interested to have. So thank you so much. I pass back to my colleague, Yasmin, or maybe I will just pass to the next moderator, I think is here, Dr. Shahir Zaki. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maurice. You can hear me?
Yes, perfect. It's fine.
Great. Thank you all. So very happy to be here for the last session during this webinar. And the panel mainly is on strengthening value chain and export opportunities. And that's why we're very happy to have Asil Saeed and Majdi Haj Khalil. So perhaps I will first introduce the speakers, and then we proceed with some questions to the two speakers that we have. And then we finish with a round of questions. So just want to make sure that the two speakers are connected.
Yes, we are. Majdi is talking, so we are.
Okay, great. And
I'm here as well.
Asil.
Hello,
Okay,
everyone.
great.
Hi.
Great, thank you all. I will introduce Asil Saeed, who's a Project and Business Development Officer at Leaders International, with more than 7 years of experience working in the NGO sector, implementing more than 9 different projects with partner organizations across the whole MENA region. Part of these projects are funded by the EU. In general, she's very passionate about creating change, supporting women, fostering innovation in Palestine, and in the MENA region as well. Majdi Haj Khalil, with over 25 years of experience in economic growth, investment, and institutional development. He has an expertise in green technology, business development, international trade, and energy infrastructure. His passion lies in driving economic growth, supporting entrepreneurship, fostering innovation across different sectors. And he has also an extensive global exposure, given that he collaborated with the different organizations in several countries in Europe and in other countries. And he has been also a team leader for different research projects, particularly focusing on the MENA region. Most of these projects have been in collaboration with different institutions like DFID, USAID, EU, JICA, and SIDA. And he also led different capacity building initiatives for both the public and the private sectors. And that's why we're very pleased to have both of you to discuss value chains and export opportunities related to creative industries. So perhaps I will start with the first question to Asil. From your perspective, Asil, what are the key components of value chains in creative industries, and how can Mediterranean countries optimize these components, bearing in mind the fragmented economic and geopolitical context where we're living, in addition to all the conflict-affected countries across the MENA region? Over to you, Asil.
Hi, everyone. It's been great listening to all of the speakers so far this afternoon. I'm glad to be a part of the conversation. When we are talking about the key components of value chain, we can talk about the textbook key components, and then we can talk about the ground, the things that are on the ground. Basically, if we're talking about the components of value chain, we're talking about the concept development, the ideation at the beginning of the value chain. Then we're talking about the production, or basically converting these ideas and these kind of ambitions into products or services. And then we're talking also about the distribution, getting those products to the markets, and then the marketing, the branding, and the consumption. And at the end of this cycle, we are talking about the feedback or the engagement of the audience. As you mentioned, our region has different challenges. It has a bit of a different, let's say, maybe understanding of what value chain is, especially that for many, many years, we have always been the consumers, let's say, of products in comparison to actually producing them. So when it comes to our experience in Leaders International, I know that later on we'll be talking about one of the projects that we worked with that was called Creative. Our optimization or our understanding of a value chain really works with the idea of helping this ideation, these companies in the ideation phase, because we have discovered that in the end, in our experience, this is where we lack most of the problems. We have a lot of problems when it comes to the ideation. People have great ideas, but they don't have the means or the tools necessary to move on with these ideation, with these ideas to the production or converting these ideas into products. And later on, once these ideas are actually made, surprisingly, the marketing, the branding, the distribution are not as big of a problem, especially when it comes to the local markets, let's say, just because we don't have as many, let's say, products that are made and bred, let's say, in our communities. So I hope I answered the question.
Thank you, Asil. Perhaps the second question, I will address it to Majdi. Majdi, given your experience in different capacity building programs and in both the public and the private sector, from your perspective, what are the most effective strategies for strengthening the collaboration between creative industry stakeholders, given that it's a large spectrum of stakeholders, and how this can help promote exports of creative industries in the Mediterranean region?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, to kind of just to add to what Asil and all the other speakers kind of, been talking about, that in terms of collaborations within the creative industries in the kind of in the region, in the Mediterranean kind of regions, already exist, but it exists kind of very much on an individual initiatives rather than a collaborative kind of initiatives. And what kind of brings to my mind sort of some examples, if you talk about music, performance arts, TV, radio, visual arts, crafts, kind of all these things are very much kind of in place today amongst kind of various kind of Mediterranean countries within the region. But when we talk about kind of strategies, there isn't really such a strategies where very much kind of governments are involved in them. And the first thing that comes to my mind, in order to create a kind of more solidified kind of collaborations, we would have to have some sort of regional networks and platform. Some of the speakers already kind of mentioned digital platforms for collaborations. I think we need to create digital platforms for creative industries, probably also for other industries, and based sort of on clusters or other things, to create a network, share resources, create co-create kind of projects together. And this is something also Asil has mentioned in terms of when it goes from idea to fruition, there isn't really enough collaborations between the various governments or the various sort of countries. We also have to create what we call a cross-borders kind of clusters or alliances in terms of a policy sort of side, in terms of a strategy side of it. And what do we really mean by that? Kind of when we talk about fashion, when we talk about music, when we talk about digital art, when we talk about digital platforms, AI, as kind of mentioned, these are the kind of things where we can create some sort of a partnership between. So there isn't a strategies, and governments have to really kind of get involved in creating such a strategy. Also, some of the speakers kind of mentioned, how can we that collaborations kind of create a meaning. We need to have access to finance and access to funding. So creative industries, for whatever reasons, do not really have what we call, or governments do not really get involved with the development agencies in order to establish kind of these funds or these kind of targeting creative industries today. And the world kind of, in terms of the world economy, is moving very, very fast. And the reason you need kind of funding in order to be able to export, to create an export kind of potentials eventually for us to be able to penetrate in new markets, whether within the Mediterranean regions or even with a wider kind of, scope. And governments have to also kind of work in terms of creating what we call subsidies, for we have to have some incentives in order to encourage these kind of, creative industries, and to kind of create a platform to plant the seeds for them to be able to penetrate and enter kind of new markets. We already talked about, the EU project today is actually some form of a partnership. So creating a partnership between international agencies and creative industries will also open up more avenues for them to be available to create sort of to expose them to more kind of funding, more support programs, other things, promoting knowledge and sharing capacity building. Well, why do you really need to do that? Because kind of exchanging experience and knowledge will very much help those creative industry to penetrate, to create more of a diverse, to understand the culture, to exchange sort of, ideas and information. Mentorship and advisory services, so something that we really lack within the Mediterranean region, for us to be able to benefit from the fast-moving sort of digital world today, and how we can sort of utilize that kind of industry to interchange heritage, cultures, all sorts of things. There's a problem when you talk about cooperations and collaborations in terms of market access and export support. Movement of people sometimes is very, very difficult within the Mediterranean region. So there are, we do require to create some sort of facilitate that kind of market access, possibly as well through trade missions, trade fairs, create an export guidance in terms of that supports creative industries. Somebody sort of some of the speakers kind of talked about e-commerce, so creating like an online marketplace for creative products such as crafts. It already exists, but it's not kind of strategized in a sense. It's not within a policy. We already talked about digital marketing, probably like a regional digital marketing, and a branding kind of as well for the region. There isn't such a thing. So creating a regional marketing, branding kind of strategy where it's cohesive, for the Mediterranean creative, where we can kind of very much talk about cultural diversity, heritage, modern influences in that kind of sense. This kind of unified branding approach, I'm sure, can increase the appeal for Mediterranean products to be on the international sort of market. We also kind of talked about social media and digital campaigns. These are powerful today. They are very powerful in terms of leveraging on these kind of social media platforms for us to be reach, more of a global audience, to really tell them about the unique aspect of the Mediterranean. What are the unique aspects of these Mediterraneans? How can creativity, can we tell stories and resonates, that very much kind of resonates with consumers. Coordinated kind of digital campaigns that we can promote the entire region, through social media, using influencers, using kind of, partnership. Somebody also kind of, the previous speakers talked about IP and IP protections. How can we create awareness? So basically, training on international intellectual properties rights, educating kind of these stakeholders in terms of the importance of their creative work, and how that intellectual rights can very much particularly kind of assist them entering a new market. IPR drives very international property kind of right advisory service as well, where we can offer services on terrestrial. And I think Nader kind of mentioned something in terms of like a regulatory sort of side of it, creating a registry where we can protect their work amongst sort of the Mediterranean region, and even into the wider sort of globe. Just kind of two last points. It's unfortunate within the kind of within the Mediterranean kind of region, we don't have what we call a public private partnership, where governments kind of create support and incentives, tax incentives, grants, export subsidies, these kind of things. And somebody kind of also mentioned how we can utilize the other sectors. The private sector has a social responsibility. So there is a CSR kind of programs that have to be created, where we can create that kind of corporate social responsibility from the private sectors to be involved in the creative industry, mainly like take tourism as one of them. When we talk about advertising, when we talk about kind of penetrating more kind of markets and even international markets. Last thing, and that kind of subject has been mentioned and been talked about a lot, is inclusivity. The Mediterranean region is a very, very young region. So kind of the inclusivity of or the support for women and youth within the MENA region, creating that kind of tailored programs where governments kind of very much support women and youth in creative industry and giving them access to resources. It doesn't have to be always financial, but very much kind of creating the ecosystem, the landscape, the paving the way, so for them to be able to penetrate these new markets. And as well, kind of, where we can create and highlight the culture diversity, because culture diversity could be a very good point of sales for us to be able to penetrate and export some of that product into sort of, to these kind of markets. I think these kind of, 8 or 9 points that kind of comes to my mind into this, what kind of collaborations we can create, what kind of strategies we can create and propose for the Mediterranean region for us to be able to create that export brand of a Mediterranean on creative industries.
Great. Thank you, Majdi, for this detailed answer regarding the different strategies and forms of collaboration that we can have. Perhaps we can have some follow-up questions on that afterwards. But coming back to the regional and global value chains, Asil, from your perspective, how regional and global value chains that we have in the MENA region, or that we potentially can have in the MENA region, can affect creative industries, and based on what Majdi said in terms of the opportunities or the strategies that we have to adopt in order to promote exports, what kind of strategies do we need to promote the development of clusters and the development of regional and global value chains and creative industries?
Thank you for the question. Majdi kind of paved the way to what strategies do we need. Honestly, on a regional and global value chain kind of dynamics. First of all, we basically need to really work into fostering cross-border collaboration. You mentioned before that Leaders International, including myself, we worked with under the ENI CBC Med projects, which is basically a cross-border collaboration project funded by the EU between southern and Mediterranean countries, and basically all the countries across the Mediterranean or on the Mediterranean. These kind of cross-border collaboration, cross-border projects have really been a great environment for value chain projects or any value chain kind of collaboration, because it helped with getting together the pool of resources that could be used, sharing the knowledge between different aspects and partners from across different borders and different countries, in addition to really increasing the visibility of these projects on a global stage. I'll give an example. If a small embroidery in Palestine is creating amazing fashion designs, but they are unable to really kind of market them or create them or show them to the world, these kind of connections between cross-border collaboration could really support. So, for example, we had a cluster in leather that worked in southern of the West Bank in the city of Hebron. They collaborated with Ayatex, which is one of the biggest companies that work with textile in Spain. And now, 3 years after the project is over, they still have this kind of connection, and they still created that kind of cross-border collaboration where they still work together, they still use fabrics from Spain and so on. The second thing that we can really work with is basically adapting to digitalization. And this has been mentioned by multiple of the panelists before. We have to follow technology at this point and embracing these digital tools and teaching our creative industries owners and marketers the ins and outs of these tools really could support them in the distribution and marketing of their products, and really offering these kind of training programs to enhance their literacy, digital literacy, could really support value chain and the impact of regional and global value chains within our region. And finally, I believe kind of building stronger narratives. Majdi just mentioned how our region is very known for knowing how to tell a story. Yeah, I mean, you can talk about the Greeks, you can talk about, we really have been known to having this authentic cultural heritage when it comes to this region in the Mediterranean. So if we can translate this culture, this authenticity, let's say, about ourselves in other products that we cater to global consumers, to consumers that are seeking a unique story-driven offering, I think we can really support the global value chains and the idea of the dynamics and the impacts of these industries within our region.
Thank you, Asil. Perhaps a question to both of you regarding both actually exports and regional and global value chains, because we have been talking a lot about cross-border collaboration and how this can improve, and bearing in mind that a lot of part of the creative industries or a significant part of creative industries is backed by services. And we know that trade and services in the MENA region in general and in Euromed countries in particular, in the Mediterranean countries in particular, are still heavily regulated and protected, which makes trade and services in general not as high as one can expect. So from your perspective, what are the most important reforms that we need for the trade and services sector, especially in order to promote creative industries that are heavily dependent on services, like what we call now the servicification of those industries? So perhaps, Majdi, if you can start, and then Asil.
Sorry, Dr. Shah, can you just repeat the question right at the end? I didn't hear it, sorry.
So my question is mainly regarding trade and services in general. Yes. Given that a lot of creative industries are heavily dependent on services, and we know that trade and services in the MENA region and in Mediterranean countries are heavily, trade and services is in general low because services are either regulated or protected, which makes the service sector in general not easily accessible, and therefore market access in general is very weak. So what are the main reforms that we need for the services sector in general in order to promote trade and services and therefore boost service exports and regional and global value chains within the creative industries sector?
I mean, thank you for repeating. I mean, it just from probably like a government's kind of perspective in that kind of sense in terms of when it comes to trade and services. And I think what we really need to do is what we call like a policy probably formulation and very much kind of an implementation where the policies itself kind of supports whether it's the creative industry, whether it's kind of trade and services, because the idea is we really require to reduce barriers, to reduce kind of, whether on trade in general, and to ensure that we very much kind of, protect kind of these industries amongst the region itself. I mean, the other sort of, part in terms of, we as kind of already mentioned to you earlier, in terms of kind of, the public-private coordination, it's almost in existence within the at least within the Arab world, and to a certain extent, we very much kind of bring the industry stakeholders, the private sector or the private investors, the financial institutions that very much kind of supports the trade and service and very much kind of promote it and promotes the initiatives of indulging as well, can I create creative kind of industries into these kind of sectors as well. Again, kind of, advocacy is one of the other things, like how can we advocate for trade and services among kind of, those regions. We keep saying capacity building and training, and we keep kind of repeating kind of, the problem is more of kind of, probably at a younger kind of, generation in terms of the educational side, because we very much direct our children or the young sort of, the youngsters today towards certain sectors or towards certain sort of, areas of trades or policies or whatever it is, without actually educating them that the world is kind of fast moving into different kind of services. Today, I think somebody mentioned that you can buy furniture and you can actually see that furniture, how it fits into your house digitally rather than having it. So those are the kind of things. There are services there that can provide you and facilitate your access to them without you have physically kind of being there. In terms of kind of tourism amongst the when you talk about trading services, when you talk about tourism amongst the various kind of region or Mediterranean region, again, the accessibility and having access, visas and all sorts. So the governments have to really work on certain things. Don't forget, the geopolitical sort of impacts that we have currently in the MENA region has affected as well that kind of collaborations, whether it's in general trade or whether it's in trading services. Today, Jordan has absolutely new tourism because of what's happening in Lebanon and in Palestine, and it's the same thing, and it's affecting probably it's more domestic sort of tourism than the international one. In terms of kind of people performance kind of arts, the inability to go because of the general public aspect of that. So there's all sorts of things that very much affects and impacts that. So I hope kind of very much touch bases on the answering your question.
Thank you, Majdi. Asil, would you like to add something related
Yeah,
to
I mean,
creativity?
kind of Majdi touched on what we, out of our experience in Leaders International, really kind of where we saw services become better. We really have to engage the governmental aspect of it, the policy making aspect of it. It's and this has always been a challenge, and maybe it's a bit more of a challenge now because of geopolitical issues. But at the same time, we're thinking a lot of these governments, a lot of these agencies are also a lot more open now to change, to adapting new policies, new services. And this really could help our value chain and our creative industries, because when we make services easier for these companies, we leave them a lot more room to be more productive, to be more, creative. And at the same time, we are engaging the public sector in all of these in all of these initiatives, which also creates a better economy. One of the previous panelists were talking about how talent leaves. So maybe if we create these kind of collaborations between the public and the private sector, keeping in mind that the main goal of all of these collaborations is to make a better economy, a stronger economy, a place where young individuals can be creative, but at the same time they're making money to stay. All of these things, I think, are a starting point to enhance the services for these value chain companies and these creative industries.
Thank you so much, Asil. Coming back to the issue of, from a more concrete perspective, and based on your respective experiences, so Asil, you mentioned at a certain point the creative project that enhanced to a certain extent value chain for some traditional industries in the Mediterranean region. So can you share with us what are the main lessons that we can learn from this experience on the one hand, and on the other, what are the main challenges that prevented this project from expanding or from deepening the value chain itself? So we need two things, the challenges and the lessons.
Yeah, great. Okay, so I'll just give a bit of a quick introduction on Creative itself. It's basically a project that was under the ENI CBC Med project umbrella, and it tackled the idea of creating let's say connections between bring traditional sectors in the Mediterranean area. So after our, we did our mapping and our research, we really, Mediterraneans, when it comes to textile, footwear, leather, these are all traditions and traditional sectors within our region. They create more than 280 billion euros in revenue, and almost 3 million people are employed within these sectors, and mainly in SMEs. So, and SMEs create almost 90% of this industry. So it's not dominated by, let's say, giants or whales. They're huge people. And that this is where the project came in handy. We really aimed to strengthen the value chains and the commercial partnerships between these SMEs in the Mediterranean sector. So what we ended up doing is we worked with 6 different labs in different countries, and we call them labs because they're like designed where they're working with different leather or textile or incubators or startup support. So we called them labs, and we worked with 5 different ones in all of in the following countries. We worked in Palestine with Design Lab. We worked in Tunisia, Ecolab. We worked in Italy, Hiri Lab, and then we had Techno Lab in Tunis also, and another we called it Winds Lab also in Italy. So those are different these incubators, or let's say called labs. We worked with them hands-on when it comes to capacity building, working with customers, engaging them when it comes to working with the actual products that they created, and we kind of reinvented the way that these textiles and these kind of products were created. This also came in very handy because the project established a collaboration between these artists, designers, and techno experts, creating new products. Several initiatives focused on using local, eco-friendly material, aligning with also growing consumer demands. The lessons learned mainly of this project was basically the importance of these innovation and traditional collaborations. Kind of having that balance between the traditional craftsmanship with a modern design and including technology can really significantly enhance not only the value chain, but also the product itself and the way the product is marketed and it sells itself. The second lessons learned is we need a lot of skill development when it comes to these industries. A lot of these industries kind of rely on, let's say, old traditions, and that's a beautiful thing that we tried to enhance within the project, but at the same time working with new skills and training these companies to have a better understanding of what the local market needs and the global market needs really was a huge lessons learned, because we were able to create new tools and market them and new tools for marketing that are all also available on the Creative website. The third thing that was a huge lesson learned also is how collaboration could be a catalyst for growth for all of the people involved. These collaborations and these partnerships between different stakeholders, businesses, designers, policymakers, enhanced all of the 6 labs that I talked about. We enhanced them when not only from a capacity building aspect, but actually they made more money. We opened new market linkages for them. They are still communicating now, and all of these different lessons learned can really show what projects related to let's say value chain within our region has the potential of doing. I hope I answered the question. I have many more examples of the project itself, but when we're talking about lessons learned, these are basically the main 3 that I was able to come up with.
And perhaps a quick follow-up question on this. What are the very short-term challenges that you're facing very quickly?
Yeah, so the main challenges were basically kind of financial, to be honest, one of them. You know, if a lab in Palestine is cooperating with a lab in let's say Spain, the regulations related to the payments were they're a bit tricky. So this was one of the main issues that we had. The second thing that the second challenge, let's say short-term challenge, was basically marketing these products, because we might be able to market. It was a lot easier to market Palestinian, Tunisian products in the European market, but the opposite was not as easy. And based on regulations, of course, and geopolitical issues. And again, the third and most, and I guess the biggest one, was basically the geopolitical conflicts and, you know, problems that happen across our region that might hinder the timing of the production, kind of the understanding of how kind of the system works here. So those basically were the main challenges for us.
Thank you so much. Marzi, I have a question related, given that, again, I think one of the important issues that you mentioned was the public-private partnership, and to what extent it's either underdeveloped or facing a lot of challenges in the Mediterranean countries. So if we want to prioritize the top 3 reforms that can improve the policy interventions at the government level through public-private partnerships, what would be the top 3 reforms that you would prioritize in order to achieve this objective?
Only 3, Dr. Shai? I mean, there's
yes. We really, I mean, the top 3 that really matter for such a public-private partnership to help the government achieve its objectives.
Of course. I mean, you know, I just wanted to add to what, you know, just to kind of add to what Asil was talking. And in terms of human capital, is also kind of a challenge in terms of the challenges. There's very much as a human capital between certifications when it comes to products as well, and certain sort of services. That's also kind of, you know, a challenge. And I also kind of want to refer to your mapping of the MENA region, you know, like the lack of consistent industrial sort of, you know, strategies, the corruption, the lack of FDIs, and all these kind of things that you kind of, you know, did in one of your reports, I think, if my memory does not kind of, you know, fail me. But when it comes to your questions, you know, talking about the policy kind of, you know, interventions and that kind of thing, and I think probably what comes to mind as a very important one is probably having a regional creative industries kind of export strategy. That's possibly one of the factors where we can have a unified export strategy, where governments in general can work together to create that kind of regional export strategy for either creative industries and identifying priorities, for example, fashion, crafts, media, digital content, that kind of thing, in order to be exported. And the same sort of, you know, time cross borders kind of, you know, coordination, where kind of intergovernments kind of bodies can create like a working groups that they can work within the Mediterranean to oversee the implementation of such a strategy. Another one in terms of kind of, you know, in terms of providing financial support and access to funding. And this is not, I'm not talking now about a country, but very much on an interregional. So governments have to work together to kind of create that kind of export subsidies for them to be able access to affordable loans, probably as well, which is kind of, you know, work between intergovernmental financial institutions, offering low interest, whatever it is, that does kind of, you know, that kind of thing. And as well, market access and trade agreements, probably. We already know that we have a trade agreement within sort of, you know, the Mediterranean region, but there isn't really a trade agreement that very much kind of mentions creative industries as part of it. So probably having a provision on creative industry in these kind of trade agreements, where governments within the Mediterranean can work to include creative industries in the regional and international kind of, trade agreements. This will very much kind of, work as reducing tariffs, simplifying customs, all these kind of things. Something that also Asil kind of mentioned in terms of moving these products, sort of exchanging, those products. One other aspect of the kind of, market access and the trade agreements I would think of is the bilateral and multilateral cultural agreement. This is also kind of very, very much important. Because when we say cultural, then we talk about inclusivity, we talk about women, we talk about youth, we're talking about kind of, exchange bilateral sort of, in terms of key markets influencing the EU, the North America, and even kind of, Asia. Another kind of, somebody also kind of, the speakers mentioned investing in digital infrastructure, e-commerce platforms. And these are another things that are very, very important. Subsidized access to e-commerce is very, very much important kind of platform. So governments really, really have to partner with major e-commerce platforms, subsidized kind of access to create kind of, businesses, helping them to reach that kind of global audience, because this is the only way. Again, creating maybe a portal, a hub, national, international, regional kind of creative e-commerce would also kind of, help. Dr. Shah, I could talk forever, like on these kind of things. There's other things. I don't want to kind of take any more of your time. But again, one last one, which I think very, very, very important. We really have to work on what we call promoting a regional and national branding. Is very, very important, because when we talk about, let's say, when we talk about movies, when we talk about music, when we talk about fashion, when we talk about heritage, this is a national branding for the kind of, for the MENA region. So it reflects diversity, it reflects history, modernity. A lot of people don't know through creative kind of, products, and we can also kind of, within the branding one, we can also create what we call the country specific campaigns, and this is also a possibility.
Great, thank you so much. This is very comprehensive, and I think also this is very important, given that now being a trade economist, I think that there is an important debate now on the depth of trade agreement itself, given that most of the trade agreements that have been signed by most of the MENA countries, and especially Mediterranean countries, are rather shallow, which means that just focusing on tariff removal and trade liberalization without really going into the other non-trade dimensions, ranging from non-tariff measures to services to either institutions or economic and political institutions, actually. And this is an important debate, because currently most of the trade flows, being goods or services, and this applies to creative industries, are much more affected by non-trade barriers rather than trade barriers per se. Like the behind the border barriers, the procedures, the regulations, and all this. So clearly, reforming this in an institutional framework through a regional agreement that takes those dimensions into consideration, I think will matter a lot for the competitiveness of creative industries in the Mediterranean region.
Absolutely. I mean, just if you allow me, Dr. Shah, I mean, some of those trade agreements actually killed industries in the MENA region. So basically, if you talk about Turkey, for example, in terms of what Asil was saying on the leather and industries kind of thing, on the stone and marble kind of, on other kind of, products, even on the creative industries today in the Arab region, the majority of movies, films, series, whatever, actually Turkish. So basically, even the cultural, that kind of thing is very much kind of inhibited the Arab world, but we didn't really transform anything to the other side. So it's very much kind of one-sided from them, and so you need those trade agreements to protect your industry as much as to kind of mutually benefit from any agreement on the other side as well.
Great, thank you so much. I think that the session was very informative. We touched upon different aspects related to exports, value chains, the opportunities, the challenges. And to keep time, I think we have to wrap up the session. So once again, thank you so much, Majdi and Asil, for your inputs on value chains in the creative industry sector. And now I will ask Yasmin Arabi if
yes, thank you, Shahir,
yes.
so much for that. It's very interesting and enriching and inspiring the discussion. We're a little bit beyond our schedule, but really this is extremely informative and very enriching discussion. If I don't think we don't have any questions on the panel, actually everyone's sending thanks to you and our
Yasmin, we can't hear you very well.
Can you hear me better now?
Not very much.
All right. I'm trying to. So I was just thanking you and every speaker for the session.
Yasmin, we can't hear you. You're very far from the mic, perhaps.
Hi, can you hear me better?
Yes, much better.
All right, so I was just thanking Shahir and the speakers. I know we're a little bit behind the schedule, but actually this was very informative session, and our chat box, everyone is thanking Shahir, Asil, and Majdi for the very informative session, and we don't have any questions. So I believe it's best to move directly to one of the capacity building programs that Emmanuel mentioned earlier in the introduction, which is one of the key pillars of the Euromed Forward Cluster project, which is the ECF Online Academy, our academies provided to clusters in the South Med region. We have Jessica from Veritech, and she will be leading, providing us with a 10 to 15 minute presentation about the about the academy itself. And Jessica, I'll just provide the attendees with a quick introduction about your background before you get started. So as I mentioned, Jessica is the Senior Programs Coordinator at Veritech. She has joined Veritech for 2 years, and after nearly 3 years in education sector, where she managed civic engagement initiatives and coordinated USAID events. With over 6 years of experience in nonprofit and education sectors, she has developed strong skills in project coordination, event management, research, and youth engagement for social change. Jessica is one of the experts, let's say, is very much committed and passionate about helping communities tackle the challenges the region is facing with regards to empowering innovative solutions and promoting entrepreneurship. Thank you so much, Jessica, for being here with us. And I think the session will be very enriching for the clusters joining us today and the attendees, and of course to our speakers and panelists from different organizations. Without any further ado, I think it's best to give you the 10-minute window for your presentation, and then we will move to the closing remarks. Jessica, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Yasmin, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for being here. I'm happy to present Veritech during this for this webinar, and to present one of the major activities that we're organizing under our program. So first of all, I would like to start. Can you see my presentation, my screen?
Jessica, we can see it. It's very clear.
Okay, perfect. So I'd like to start. I think many of you have heard about Veritech. We have worked with many of you before, but I would like to see if everyone's here is familiar with Veritech. Do you know anything about us? I think you can write in the chat or something. Okay, well, so I would like to see, well, technically I would like to present first and start with what we do. So Veritech, my presentation is not, okay. So Veritech is an internationally certified organization that was founded 22 years ago. We are the pioneers in supporting entrepreneurship ecosystem and the growth of startups, SMEs, and clusters in Lebanon and the region. So Veritech works on shaping economies in the MENA region by supporting startups, companies, clusters to start, grow, and scale through its different support programs, whether for startups, as you can see here, or for entrepreneurship and innovation communities, or for the ecosystem in general. So we have different kind of programs that tackle different sectors, different kind of support, in order to be able to help and improve our economy. So the main activities and industry verticals of Veritech are knowledge economy, green economy, blue economy, and social economy. What's our role in the Euromed clusters forward? So Veritech is one of the 4 main partners for this program. We work on managing the strengthening clusters capacity and regional cooperation component, which is a component dedicated for clusters and their capacitation. We also work on creating business opportunities and fostering knowledge exchange among clusters between the South Mediterranean region and the EU region. The aim of this component is to elevate the cluster's performance, to elaborate future-looking and sustainable strategies, to provide quality services for their members, and to scale up the business performances, innovation capacity, and job creation. So now I will introduce you to our friend, meet Spark District. So Spark District, as you can see here, he looks very tired, and he comes from the South Mediterranean region. Spark District was born in 2019. He was founded by a donor agency and has limited financial support. And I assume that many of you are familiar with the situation, and maybe you can relate to it. We can relate to it a bit. So now Spark District is facing a lot of financial challenges. It's lacking proper governance and strategy. Also, it needs support in its green and technology transition, and is seeking ways to establish collaboration opportunities in the MENA region and the EU markets. And is lacking and is seeking also to learn more about specific topics and to achieve specific objectives. And in this case, I'm sure that many of you relate because we know how the situation is going on. So bear with me and see how the development of Spark will happen. So the Euromed Clusters Forward, since it knows all these challenges, has found the best solution, which is the academy or the academies. The academies are training boot camps, field visits, collaboration opportunities, meeting with donor agencies, knowledge transfer activities, and many other activities happen during the academy. What is the academy? The academy is a 3-day training boot camp and visits. 2 to 3 representatives from each cluster will attend the academy, and we can have up to 20 participants per academy. Also, if they participate in the academy, the training expense, flight, meals, accommodation, they will be covered by the program. By participating in the academy, clusters will be able to address these challenges that we've talked about, achieve the objectives they want, and develop regional and EU collaborations among clusters. So what we have done so far, what is our timeline? Since the academies, some of them happen in person and others happen online, we have implemented in 2023 2 in-person academies, one on ICT and aerospace in Marseille and another on competitiveness in Barcelona. We have implemented also 2 online academies on strategy and on governance. In 2024, an academy about the MENA markets, accessing the MENA markets, was implemented in Amman. An academy on export was implemented online. On action plans, also online, and Veritech is also implementing an academy in financial management in Cairo. What about 2025? So we have 4 or 5 upcoming academies in 2025. One of them will be on CSR, 3 will be in person, and 2 will be online. Excuse me here, I should have put a 3rd in-person academy. So you have to stay tuned. You have to know that Veritech and its partners, whether Anima, leaders, or Axio, we are all implementing academies throughout the whole year. So you have to know about our activities and know how to apply and have the chance to be there. So for more effectiveness in the project, we make sure that there is a synergy between all these academies and all the project activities like twinnings, technical assistance, and also tech days, which are some exhibitions or technology exhibitions that you may have access to as well. So finally, Spark District have participated in these academies. And once he participated, we can see that he is now able to promote sustainable development, boost the economic growth of its sector, foster collaboration between different stakeholders, and develop regional value chains and partnerships with different clusters, whether from the EU or the South Mediterranean region. So now I invite you to join the Academy today, so you can gain more knowledge and skills in cluster management and growth, develop concrete action plans for your industries, and be part of a like-minded community from different sectors and countries. Also benefit from a network of EU and South Mediterranean clusters for better collaboration opportunities. Now I invite you to express your interest. All those who are interested in joining our academies, you can scan the QR code now, fill in your information, and once we have a call, us or our partners have a call for the academies, they will send you the invite and you may apply. So I will keep this for a few minutes so that you can scan and apply your information. And now it's time for Q&A. If any of you have any question for me about Veritech, about the program, or about the academies, please let me know.
Thank you so much, Jessica. We had one question about the details of the academy before you started, and I think through your presentation you managed to go through this. And thank you. I think it will be best to leave the QR code since this is one of the main activities under ECF project. So any of the attendees can scan it and, as you mentioned, register. And once there's a new call for one of the academies, whether online or in person, they will hear about it. And without any questions, I think it's safe to provide follow-up. Yeah, there is actually one. Does the academy provide follow-up to clusters after completing the training?
So it depends on the academy and it depends on the trainer. In some of the academies, yes, we have managed to do a follow-up on, let's say, the strategy that they have put during the academy. So the trainer have contacted them and did a follow-up actually to make sure that they are completing what they have to. In another academy as well, where clusters have met with other clusters in the EU, there was another activity that's called training or soft landing. We were able to match them with the EU clusters that they met in the previous academy. So we were able to put them in contact and fund with money their soft landing in this country. So yes, we do follow. What are the topics tackled during the academy? It's different kind of topics, and then in this QR code, we ask you what kind of topics that you would like us to tackle. So technically, the topics that were covered so far were governance, strategy, action plan, export, competitiveness, ICT, Industry 4.0, now financial management. And in the future, there will be different topics. There's still eight academies to be implemented, 5 in 2025 and 3 in 2026. So there will be different kind of topics depending on the needs of the cluster. So the more you give us information, the better we can tailor the support. Because each academy, the content of each academy is tailored for the clusters that are accepted.
Excellent. I don't think we have any other questions. So thank you so much, Jessica, for this enriching and very informative presentation. And now we'll move to the closing session. We will keep this QR code for.
Okay, I will keep it.
Yeah, because this is one of the key activities. We'll keep the QR code just to make sure that if any of the attending clusters would like to register, they can. And Yasmin, I'll leave it to you and Emmanuel to close this interesting webinar. So the floor is yours, Yasmin.
Thank you, Yasmin, and thanks to all the panelists and to our chairs and moderators, and thanks, of course, to the consortium for this fantastic collaboration. We've learned a lot today about creative clusters of SMEs. I certainly have. We talked about a lot of things. The range of things we covered is quite wide. We talked about the role of artificial intelligence. We talked about the digital divide and the implications of that digital divide. We talked about the role of intellectual property rights, which is very important in this specific sector. We talked about sustainability and climate action and climate resilience, which is also very important in this day and age. I've learned personally about the green, blue, orange, and yellow economies, and that was quite interesting to learn about. We talked about the cross-border collaboration potential in this region. We talked about the role of government funds, or actually lack thereof, of government funds in this particular sector, which is quite lacking. The importance of trade and services for this particular sector is quite apparent, of course, and we've touched upon that as well, and the role of the value chains, of course. We talked about challenges, which is, I think, what we can reflect on moving forward. We talked about regulations and regulatory frameworks, which are quite instrumental for this sector to thrive. We talked about access to finance. We talked about marketing and marketing techniques and potential for cross-country and interregional collaboration. And of course, we talked about the geopolitical situation, which definitely hinders all the sectors and not specifically creative industries, but it's the reality we have to deal with. We've learned about how to promote public and private partnerships, which I think is something we really need to think further about as well. And specifically in the realm of creative industries, it would have a specific stamp, of course. We talked about the lack of depth in trade agreements, the existing trade agreements in matters related to creative industries, and of course the existence of non-tariff barriers, which could hinder cross-border collaborations in this realm. So I think we had a very rich discussion, and I think we've derived a lot of interesting insights. And I really enjoyed that discussion, and I hope all of our attendees and participants have also found the discussion engaging and stimulating, and that the insights were useful. And as of course that you've been informed at the beginning of this webinar that this is part of the series. Before I leave you, I'd like to thank all of you and thank all the teams that worked together throughout the past couple of months to arrange for this webinar and the series that next up we have in line the agri-food industries, and that's going to be on the 16th of December. And I hope to see you then, and I welcome, of course, your participation, and it will be interesting to learn more about this sector as well. So thank you all very much, and thanks, of course, to Anima for bringing us all together. And with that, I give the floor to Emmanuel. Over to you.
Thank you, Yasmin. Well, I think you said everything, so I will not make the summary of the webinar. Thanking really all the speakers that spoke from the different perspective. Also, I would like to thank the ERF team for starting with this very good webinar, the webinar series of Euromed Clusters Forward. Indeed, the next event will be on the 16th of December. And if by chance within this event you find ideas, you identify ideas to pursue a cooperation at Euromed level on these sectors of creative industry, you know that we have an instrument, grant support within the Euromed Clusters Forward, which support collaborative projects from clusters or operators belonging to clusters in specific sectors that aim to dynamize, to create value chains within the Euromed. So it's not obvious in this sector. Obviously, we have the textile, the fashion sector, where it's more obvious to identify and to see where the value chain can be developed within the Euromed. However, in other domains, like the movies, video games, etc., it's less obvious. Although we've seen today that technology also is technology bricks can be also a way to share value among this the value chain in this sector. But if you are willing to think about a collaboration within these sectors with other stakeholders from other countries, come back to us, come back to me, to my colleague Zoe Luçon, and we can help you to support, to design, maybe to find partners and to design a project to develop collaboration among countries within this sector. But thank you, everyone, and thank you for the participation as well. And we look forward for the next event, the next webinar on the 16th of December. Thank you.